you doing today? Welcome to my photo editing live stream where you can submit your images before the stream starts and I edit them here for you live using DxO Photolab 8. And I am an affiliate for DxO, and I'll have my links down below if you're interested in downloading like a 14-day free trial. I think it might be a 30-day, but in any case, and there's also a 15% discount code if you decide to purchase it, in which case I'll earn a commission. But I do these streams so that you can see the tools that DxO offers. And there's no better way than to edit your photos, right? And along the way, I offer some suggestions if I see any, particularly with camera settings and exposure. Composition is very subjective, and I'm going to edit these the way that I would do if they were my images, but has nothing to do with your vision or artistic or creative thoughts on the shot. It's just simply how I would edit them. And again, the primary focus is here on the tools, and I'll try and walk you through my thought process as well uh, for the images and why I'm using certain tools uh, to make that effect, right, or change that setting. And also, if you have any questions, just leave them in the chat section. I'll try and take a break every couple of images and answer the questions in the chat. So I won't get to them right away. And uh, I guess we'll get started. So I did download the images. I think we have 7 or 8 today. Let me open up Photolab and get to the right folder. Where is it? All right, very good so far. Okay. Uh, There, we should be able to see them. And then, I'm sorry, let me just address some of the chat here. I see Andrew, thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate that. Becoming a member for these live streams really helps out a lot. Every little bit helps. I also take donations and things. There's links down below for all that. If you can, if you're able and willing, that would be great. And Garrett, good to see you. And Paul, good to see you guys. All right. So the first one I have here is from William. And okay, so we have a fisheye, looks like. What is this? The 8mm fisheye Pro. Nice lens. I have this lens myself. And so I see underexposed slightly to preserve the sky, looks like. And I see Shri is here. Hey Shri, how are you? Um, let's do what I like to do is I like to apply the basic preset first, which is noise reduction and optical correction. So in this case, when you have a fisheye lens, DxO by default uh, corrects for the fisheye distortion if it's in its optical database, in which case, this lens and camera combination. And it's interesting that I see, okay. There's still some perspective distortion, so let's go over to the geometry. And I always like to do composition first before I start editing for exposure. Because once I get the composition that I want, then it makes sense to start editing just the areas that are left, which is usually most of the image. And for this image here, I think I'll take out, I don't really like this corner here. And we want to bring the sky in. And okay, so let me try a 4:3 crop first. Maybe a 16:9. Okay. So let's see if we can bring in, oh, and I like this red door over here actually. I didn't see that earlier. So what I'm going to do, we're going to come in That might be too tight. Let's try a 3 by 2. And I want to get a little bit of space over the top of this lamp. But I don't like to cut off the base if I can help it. But I think that's a decent crop there. All right, let's start with the sky, see how much we can bring back there. So I'm going to use a linear gradient, which just for the sky, and we're going to move the eyedropper into the brightest areas of the sky, maybe about there. And we do have chroma and luma masking with the linear, or I'm sorry, the control lines they call it. I swap between uh, Lightroom or I used Lightroom for years, so I'm still using the All right, sorry, the audio might be. Let me switch mics. The audio is going to be a little scratchy with this one. I think my Rode mic is on its way out. Sorry about that. I've been having trouble with audio the last couple of streams. I think this mic might be on its. Okay, new mic. Sorry about that. So I was looking at this blue sign and just trying to make this pop a little bit. Hmm. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, this red door complements the greens in this shot very nicely. And then there's some flowers down here. Uh, Let me see if I can make these pop a little more. So I'll do another control point just on the just on the flowers. Let's tighten that up a bit. And let's give it some micro contrast and some clear view. And then let's just increase the saturation and vibrancy a bit. Yeah. Okay, that looks good. And this wood is really, I wonder, not sure I like the imperfections here in the wood, but I guess we're okay. All right, the last thing, I'm gonna think about this wood again. The last thing is this lamp. Sometimes when I see a lamp, I like to just give it a little bit of a glow. So I'm just gonna add another control point here. I'm gonna move it so I see the masking highlight mostly the softer areas. And then let's just brighten that up and maybe make it a little warmer just to pretend that it's on. And then we'll push the highlights a bit. All right, that's good. All right, so uh, I'm gonna use the loop tool here and just kind of look around the image a little bit because there is some softness around the image that I might want to try to see how the door is okay. Hey, let me adjust the zoom here. It's a bit too much, 200%. There we go. I mean, I'm not normally a pixel peeper, but these fisheye lenses, sometimes the distortion correction makes things a little bit too smudgy. Okay, the right side looks okay. It's the left side that's a little bit wonky. So I'm gonna just try uh, a little bit of unsharp mask here and see if I can adjust this. So I need to expand the radius probably at least 2 pixels. Let's see if that helps. Just a little bit. I'm gonna back it off. And then I'm gonna push the threshold about 5% of the radius. don't know what this edge offset does. I've never gotten a feel for this. I'm just going to leave that at 0. Okay. Yeah, I think that helps. If I turn this back on, I'm going to back it off a little bit. It's starting to look a bit crispy. Probably about 150. Okay. All right, good. Um, all right, now I'm going to just look at the before and after and just get a feel for what I've done to the image overall. Okay, I think this red, I mean, there's okay, the chromatic aberration is mostly fixed, but let me punch in. There's still a little bit purple fringing here, so I'm gonna just crank this up over here. Okay, that's good. And I'm gonna see if I can bring the red out a little bit more on this side. So I'm gonna try this time. I'm gonna try a selection brush or auto masking, I think is what it's called. And let's just make this as tight as possible. Let's see where we're at. Okay, I'm brightening the exposure, and what I'm going to do is hit the Alt key and use a very feathered eraser brush just to kind of clean off the edges. Okay. Oh, I did too much. Let me let me do that again. I'm just going to clean off the edges here, just in a very feathered way. All right. Now, let's turn that mask off. Back this off a little bit. And let's push the reds using the color wheel. All right, I need to go in with the loop tool and just look at it now. Okay, much better. Might be a bit too much, but let's back off. Let me go back to this. Just a bit too much, so we'll make it darker. And pull the saturation off a little bit more. Okay. Uh, I think that's pretty good. Okay, this door on the left, this door, let me just add a control point and make it darker. Or, yeah, it's a little bit too bright like that. All right, I'm going to call it there. So let's export this. So we have JPEG, same folder, just call it DxO. And let's compare it now. gonna reset it, and we're gonna compare it to the output. All right, so I think that looks pretty good. Uh, what I would probably do if I continued editing is I was talking about the texture in the wood here. I'm not crazy about this, so I would probably lower the micro contrast a little bit to sort of minimize this speculars in the wood. But I liked how the left side came out, and I like the distortion corrections. And I think DxO did a good job because this side was really mushy in the original, but using a combination of the optics module and more of a coarse edit on the using unsharp mask, I think that combination really helped in the corners at least. So that now I think the overall image is pretty acceptable relative to what it was. But yeah, fisheye lenses in general, when you get out to the corners and you do these perspective corrections, it's hard sometimes to get it right because the pixel smearing and things and the distortion is sometimes very hard to correct. There are some tools uh, to down in here in the perspective tool where I can kind of manipulate this a little bit, but it's a pain in the butt, so I don't do it. I just try to frame when I'm using fisheye lenses. I will try and frame it wider than I would otherwise to get the perspective that I want. If I'm not going for the fisheye effect, if I'm going for the fisheye effect, then I like to get as close as I can to the image. But I can adjust. I can make adjustments here, verticals only, and try and get it to look a little bit more natural. But like I said, it's kind of a futile. It is futile, I should just say. Okay, so let's go to the next one here. I'm sorry, this one is from Robin. Okay. I think this image is from that 500 millimeter lens that you bought for $15, right? So this is kind of cool. Uh, this is like a $15 lens. You can buy them for $15 to $25 on eBay, and then adapt them to your micro four thirds. But it's a 500 millimeter equivalent, or not equivalent, but a 500 millimeter focal length. So this is a 1,000 millimeter equivalent. Uh, so I just thought I'd share that because it's not in the EXIF data, but Robin emailed me. So I'm going to apply my basic preset, and it's a couple of sensor spots, but that's okay. So this is a 500 millimeter f8, and I want to bring a little warmth back in. I think composition wise, we're okay. I can't really get any tighter. The only thing I might do is maybe just go wider because we don't really need all of that sky in the shot. And then let me go to the warm. White balance is usually pretty okay with OM system cameras, but let me try the eyedropper and see. Yeah, that's pretty good. So I'm going to back this off to about 7,000 and a little less magenta. Okay, that looks good to my eye anyway. Let me see where we were. Okay, a little less magenta. We'll put that this there. So I'm just clicking the white balance tool on and off just to kind of get a feel because this is way too cool, but I think that looks good. All right, let's work on the the one facing us first. So I'm gonna zoom in here and see if I can bring out the yellow in the eye here. I have to do these eyes separately because this one is so much darker than the other. So I'm gonna have to do very different editing. But for eyes, I'm going to just make that stand out. And let's push the yellows a bit. Let me see if I expand that out a little bit, and we'll just directly brighten the yellow. Okay, there. Hopefully it doesn't look too bad. All right, I'll look at it again, and we can go back to adjust it. So if I know I need to go back and adjust something, I like to name the control point to just the right eye, so I can get back to it quickly because I'm pretty sure I'm gonna have to come back to that eye. So let's make a new control point and see if there's anything we can get out of this other eye. Just a little bit. Gonna be tough. Let me tighten this control point up. And there's not much yellow there to push. So what I'm gonna do instead is just push the white balance just a little bit. See if I tighten the chroma mask. I'm sorry. Let's try the luma mask a bit. Some clear view and micro contrast. Okay, good. All right. So there's a little bit of a hint there. And then let's push the shadows a tiny bit on the side overall. Just a tiny bit. Okay. We'll do the same over here. This just needs a little bit. I'm just using the same control point that I started. If I don't hit the plus sign, it'll just give you a duplicate. All right. Now I want to add some contrast back in because this lens is a little bit soft and there's no optics module for it. So I'm gonna have to do uh let's see, I can go all the way down here and just click sharpening. Let me see how that's doing. That's not bad. Now let's do some micro contrast. I just want to make the feather stand out a bit. Okay. Maybe here as well. A little bit more push on the shadows. All right. All right, let's fix a couple of sensor spots and we're done, I think. So I just used the repair. I'm going to maximize the feathering. And there's one. Uh, what I can do, if I want to see the sensor spots more clear, I can go over here to the global adjustment and just crank up the clear view just temporarily. Then I can turn it back off because I didn't use it globally. And that'll let me get to the sensor spots or see them a little bit easier. I think that's good. Okay, so I'll turn that back off. I think we're done. So let me do the loop and see. I don't think I need to go back to that eye. Let's try a little unsharp mask. And then I need to darken this eye a little bit because there's still noise creeping in. So let's try a little unsharp mask over here on the detail panel. So let's go to about – let's start at about 2 on the radius. 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 2 on the radius and just increase this. All right, that's good. Okay, let me try over here. Okay, without, and I'm just going to toggle this on and off to get a feel. There's still some purple chromatic aberration, so I'm going to go back to that and fix that. Let me see if I'm just going to balance these, and then I'm going to just give the threshold just a little touch more. Okay, and then I still see a tiny bit of purple fringing here, so I'm going to just push the intensity. Let's try. Didn't quite get rid of all of it, but that's the best we're going to do. Okay, that right eye here, my right, that is. I think I pushed the shadows just a bit too much. So let's pull back a tiny bit. And then I'm going to use the loop tool and just come in again. Let me make this a little bit tighter. The loop tool applies the DxO prime, so that's why it's so different, with and without the noise. Okay, that's acceptable. All right. And then let me just look at the feather detail over here. It's a little bit noisy. Let me see if it might be the unsharp mask is too strong. No, it's not the unsharp mask. What I'm looking at, there's a little bit of grain in here. Is there any global adjustments here? No, I didn't do any. So it's a local adjustment, probably this one. Let me back off the micro contrast a bit. I'm just fine tuning now. Just pull the shadows a bit. Let me zoom again. Eh, yeah, I don't think I can do much about this unless I increase this luminance noise, because that's kind of what it is. But now I'm getting to where I'm losing detail, so we'll leave that at 40. All right, I think I'll call it there. I think that's the best I can do. So let's see where we're at. Yeah, I like it. Maybe just globally a slight push on the shadows and the midtones. All right, let's export that one and see how that looks. Okay, so I'm going to reset and compare it to the output. All right, so here's the before. So we just have to bring up the shadows and warm it up, and then just crop out all this sky. We don't need that. Fix a few sensor spots, and I think that came out really nice. So if I zoom in a bit, you can kind of see the difference, especially in this guy right here, his eyes and face, and look at the nesting. The nesting is also much improved. I think that looks fantastic. Nice detail here in the feathers. Phew, man, that came out much better than I expected. So, yeah, good job, good job. DxO did most of the work. Considering what this lens is, right? This is just a $25 lens or $15 in Robin's case. Okay, let's go to the next one and then I'll get to the chat section. Okay, so there's a little green arrow here, which means I need to download a optics module. Actually, this is a JPEG, it says critique only. So I think the exposure is perfect. All I would do is I would silhouette these people out. Maybe something like that. Tighten the Luma mask. Yeah, I would silhouette these people out, something like that. And then do the opposite. I'm gonna end up editing, but I think editing the photo is really the best way to critique it, right? In a way. Let's just bring this up a bit and give it some clear views, some micro contrast. And then composition, I would go because this is already edited, I assume. I would just go to about here, maybe come in to the left so that they're walking into the frame, and then use this line here, this line of clouds to come in from that corner. All right, so let's do a side by side. This is the way I would critique this. So if you tried to recover the shadows here, it's going to be very noisy. So it's better to just crush the blacks down all the way, like I did over here. I could probably do a little more if I spend some more time on it, but there's actually a little bit of light on this guy's face. That might be a little interesting, but yeah, this scene is just there's too much in the scene. So I'm assuming you already edit this image, but this is how I would crop it, just to sort of minimize the two important things because there's just these two don't do anything for me in the photo, and these two guys seem to be front and center. So cropping in so that they're a little bit off center, and then retaining the luminance in the sky, but then silhouetting these two guys. Now, the only other thing I might do is I like a little bit of highlighting here, rim lighting we're getting off of their hair. So probably I would just come in with a control point and just push the highlights. Let's see if I can just bring that in a bit. Let me tighten up the Luma mask. And do the same thing with this guy. Ah, no, that guy's not so much. Tighten the Luma a bit more. So that's roughly how I would edit this, right? I think I think that looks pretty good right there. So that's the before. Let me zoom out a little. That's the before. So I might silhouette this guy even more, but I think that works pretty well. Okay. Uh, but I think the exposure is perfect for this scene. It just the composition. It was mainly this composition that I wanted to had to fix, and then just highlight maybe this. This can be highlighted or not. Maybe a silhouette's better. Now we go around and accent some of the purple highlights in these clouds. But yeah, okay. Very good. We'll do one more, and then if you have any questions in the chat, just leave them now. After I edit this picture, I'll try and answer some questions. So this one here is from Butters Gatto, looks like. So let's do a basic preset, and then I'm sorry. Let me. I need to check. Oh, I need to download the optics module first. Whenever you see that green arrow, uh, that's the only way you're going to get the very best result. It's kind of their signature, DxO's signature feature is this optics module. It really does an amazing job. Okay, now we can apply the preset. Okay, compositionally, um, and this is a JPEG. It's already been edited, maybe because the typically maybe you use the polarizer, but typically the skies would be much brighter than the foreground. But the luminance is it's very similar. Okay. I'm not going to have a lot of latitude, but I'm going to do a control line to see if I can bring a little bit more of the sky, or I mean, particularly the clouds, and see if I can just bring those in a tiny bit, give it a little more contrast. And in the foreground, it's not much to do here. Maybe a couple of control points. Just give it a little push in the shadows here and some micro contrast. And the water, I don't think the water needs much. Let's tighten up the chroma mask a bit. And back this off, 55. All right, very, very little to do here. I'm gonna dial the blues back a little bit in the sky. So let me go back to the sky control line. Just dial it back. Oh wait, I need to make a new control line. Uh, because I had the eyedropper on the white part. I need to get a control line that's just focused on the blues. So let's tighten the chroma just a tiny bit. And let's pull the blues back in. And then I want to give it a maybe a little bit of a shift to make it more teal. Like I said, it's just a subjective choice here. Okay, I'll just call it there. I don't need to export it because it's kind of already a JPEG, but composition, I didn't see a lot to change here. It's already a 16:9 crop, and basically, I just like that sort of tealish sky or pastel-y sky. Uh, but either way, the image looks pretty good, and it's already exposed properly. I don't know if it's been edited before the exposure because the exposure is uh, dang near perfect. And the only way to really achieve this in camera is, using a polarizer to sort of bring the sky in. That's my best guess. But if you got this in camera, that's pretty good without a polarizer. Because I you even dialed in a +3 on the exposure comp. So I don't know if you're here. Let me know if you edit this already. But it looks like it's been edited already. So all I really could do is uh, just adjust the colors to taste. Okay, let me check the chat section real quick and see if there's any questions or anything. Okay. Any thoughts on why DxO doesn't include a whites slider? Most editing suites seem to include it. I find it useful in Neo. Well, I would say there's no reason not to include it. Bottom line, right? No reason not to include it. So I don't know why they didn't. But if I had to guess, is when you're adjusting the tones, right? The local tones, and we're talking about where's my so what we're talking about right now, the selective tone section here, highlights, midtones, shadows. I think why isn't this editing? These selective tones. If I had to guess, it would be that, sometimes when you're too selective, like just working on the whites, that it can almost look a little unnatural. So they're it's nice they included a midtones. A lot of software don't have midtones. They have highlights, shadows, and blacks, but they don't have midtones. In DxO, they have the midtones, but not the whites, right? The very top of the histogram. So I think to keep the tonal sliders or to keep the editing as natural as possible, they chose to go without the whites but include midtones. I like I said, I'm guessing. I'm guessing. Okay, and then this the osprey nest was taken. Oh yeah, so there's some more information about the lens. I was just recalling from the email you sent me about that image. Um, but yeah, that came out pretty good. That's where I lost the audio for about looks like 5 minutes. Sorry about that. And then Eric says, "Who knows good film that has rich colors? Have Fujifilm 400, but want dark, rich colors when I turn in these two rolls." Well, slide film, if you can find it. Slide film typically is very punchy, uh, but you have to watch your highlights and shadows. It doesn't have a lot of dynamic range, but they're usually very rich. Also, try to use 100 speed film or slower. And I think Kodak Color 200 is not bad if you can find it in the 100. Let me just do a quick search. Assuming you want to keep the colors relatively natural and accurate. Uh, Kodak Gold is pretty good. I wonder if the 100 films usually Ektar, yeah, these are pretty solid. Those are black and whites. So vivid color saturation, high sharpness. I think this is your best bet. Ektar color negative, or go with slide film, if you can find it. Okay. Paul says really like that edit. Okay, great. I think that was the fisheye edit, right? Nice saturated colors. And Adam says, good morning. Wearing out my free trial of Photolab 8 and waiting for a functional disc code. How are the healing removal tools as far as ease of use and quality? Okay, so my discount code should be working. It should be working for 15% off. If there's higher percentages off, those can be spotty, right? Because they kind of come and go very quickly. But mine should be good for the whole year. Uh, and you have to click my affiliate link again for me to get credit. If you just use the coupon code, I won't get credit. So you have to kind of do both. Click on the link, and then uh, that way the cookie is fresh. Because the way affiliate links work is last in, you know, first out gets credit. So I want to be the last one, assuming you want to give me the credit, but you can use my coupon code either way. And the healing and removal brush, there's not a removal brush, there's a healing tool. So it's fair, okay? It's not very sophisticated like Lightroom and Photoshop that has very sophisticated removal tools. So for example, if I wanted to remove this tree, I think the healing brush is good for removing sensor spots and uh, some other things. The healing brush is pretty good, but there's two modes. Um, so this is the healing tool, right? So you have clone, which just copies, right? So if I do this, I can copy kind of over here, and then I can adjust the feathering like that, right? Uh, and this is what I mean. It's not very sophisticated. Then the repair tool, uh, what I would use, so if I wanted to remove this tree, because the healing tool is not bad, right? Healing things, fixing weird stuff, but there's no remove tool. So if you want to remove something like this tree, this is a little trickier, right? So I would probably use the clone tool and just do a little bit at a time like this and move this over. And it would take some time. So I'm you know, I would have to do it a little bit at a time like this. But you get what I'm doing, right? I don't wanna go through the whole thing. Oh, sorry, you can't see it. So, what I was showing was, here's the healing tool. If I use the clone tool, like I did here, I can I can say remove the top of that like that, and then just reduce the, feathering. So now I remove the top of that mountain, but this is a simple stamp, right? It just copies from wherever the other piece of that tool is. And what I was trying to show you was that if I wanted to remove this tree altogether, this would be tricky. I'd have to do it a little bit at a time and work my way around. It would take forever. This is where Photoshop has, the AI clone removal, whatever. Photoshop's a lot better, but I find it adequate for most things. If I compose the images and the elements in the scene the way I want, I don't really have to get too aggressive with cloning and removing things, right? Because everything in the frame I wanted to begin with. But if I wanted to remove, say, sticks and branches, like I don't like this stick right here, something like that, it's fine, right? I can do things like that and it does a good job. Okay, so hopefully that uh, helps you understand the healing and cloning tool. They're very, very basic. They're not very sophisticated, and you have to do most of the work with the editing to make it work, but you can get there. Robin says the tree frog photo is an unedited large superfine raw. I wasn't shooting raw that day. Okay. I didn't see that one yet, but Shri says, what will be the best way to take the pano and stitch it if you want to do a 180 of the Milky Way picture? Okay, so uh, I use um, why am I having a brain fart? Let me look. The stitching tool that I use is Huggin, Hugin. Unless you use Photoshop. I assume you don't have a stitching tool already like Photoshop or Neo or Affinity. There's a lot of tools out there that have stitching, uh, but Photolab does not. So I have to use a third-party free software called Huggin. And to do a 180 of the Milky Way, I would recommend doing, okay, make sure you have a very, very level tripod and you have the nodal point set for the stitching. Nodal point's very, very important if you're doing more than 2 or 3 images. A 180 would probably be several images, right? Uh, even with a super wide angle lens, unless we're talking fisheye, which has a 180 to begin with, right? But generally speaking, let's say you're shooting at a 12 millimeter or 25 millimeter equivalent lens, 24 millimeter, 30, equivalent lens, which would be a 12 millimeter on micro four thirds, which I know you shoot. You're going to need to make sure that nodal point is very critical. Make sure your tripod is level, and then do the landscape first, the bottom, and expose for that, and get the exposure that you want. You don't want it to look like daylight, but you want it brighter than you would otherwise capture, uh, against the Milky Way and dark sky. Because you want the sky to be dark, you want the landscape to be a little bit brighter. Again, these are creative choices, but I would want the landscape to be clearly visible so that you can see the details and everything. So I would expose it for daylight and then bring the exposure down in post-processing for the landscape. That way you get plenty of detail without any noise. Because you can always darken an image without getting any noise. And then for the Milky Way itself, uh, that you might I'm thinking if you're doing single shot exposures, they're going to be about 20 seconds, 20 seconds each roughly, right? ISO 1600. I've never done this myself. I'm just thinking it out, but I would do the same thing. I would tilt the camera up so that you capture the entire Milky Way and then take as many shots as you need to get the full 180, if that makes sense, right? So that's what I would do. And those exposure would be about 20 seconds each. So if you do say 6 shots, right? Because you're gonna have to overlap. I would overlap about I would overlap at least 30%, right? So overlap about 30%, if not half, because these are very, very long exposures. That way the stitching has plenty to work with and you can make adjustments. So you're doing 4 or 5 images across to get a 180, maybe 6 images, right, to get a full 180 with a 12 millimeter lens. Yeah. So 6 times 2, you're at about 2 minutes. So it's only a 2-minute difference between one side to the other. You should be okay with a Milky Way, but you might have to, yeah, you're gonna have to, well, the software will do it. It should align everything properly. And then and then you're gonna have to create 2 layers, one for the foreground, one for the Milky Way, and edit them separately. and then blend them back together, exposure blend them back together using a mask. That's how I would do it. There's a lot of tutorials online on how to do that stuff, but just off the top of my head, that would be my workflow. So mine does not work. I purchased Nick years ago and it was giving me new customer. Oh, I see. Yeah, you already have an account. Okay. That's too bad. I'll have to see if I can get them to adjust the code so it works with any purchase. I'll ask. I'll ask. I didn't realize it was for new customers only, or if I did, I forgot. Sorry about that, Adam. We used to use underexposed slide film, one third of a stop to increase saturation. Yep, slide film. And we'll download Huggin. Yeah, Huggin works great. It works great. You have, it's a little bit of a learning curve, but it works really well. And maybe you should borrow Dave's 4 millimeter and see how that goes. The 4 millimeter lens is a fisheye. You want to get the 6 or 7 millimeter. Dave has a 7.5 millimeter that I gave it to him. It's got scratches in it now though. You know how Dave is. Uh, but I thought you had an 8 millimeter fisheye lens. Hmm. Because with an 8 millimeter fisheye lens, you could do it in 3 shots, right? One, two, three. You can get a 180. Because it's not quite 180, on the on the horizontal axis. On the diagonal, it's 180, but it's not quite 180 on the horizontal. So you would probably need at least three to get a 180. All right, let's get back to the editing. Let's see. Okay, okay, looks like some snow geese maybe. And this guy is, so let's apply basic preset. These guys are a bit too far away. So I see a sensor spot. Uh, I think what I'll do is I'll just focus on these two guys because this guy on the left is way underexposed. I'll just do this, maybe give it a little bit of a tilt. So they're coming in from each corner. And then let's see. Probably a 5x4. Ah, it's okay. This is an okay composition. Not great. Let's try that. All right. We're gonna have to. I'm gonna just use control points and see if I can bring the shadows up. Let me tighten up the Luma mask a bit, and then push the shadows, push the midtones, and the highlights, and then let's give it just a touch of clear view, a touch of micro contrast, push the blacks a little bit. Okay, let's do the loop and see how we're doing. Not great. Uh, just give it a little more sharpening. I don't know if unsharp mask will do anything. Now we have still a little bit of chromatic aberration here, just a tiny bit. Uh, so I'm going to see if I can get anything out. No, not really. I'm seeing just a little bit of green aberration there and a little bit of purple on this side. But yeah, they're just too far away. What is it? This is the 100 to 400. Okay. Yeah, that lens is, it's not their top tier lens, right? I think that's all I can do here, really. So let me export this, and then we'll do a comparison. All right, so on the original, there is no hope of recovering this guy down here. He's just way underexposed. And the composition would be so wide, you wouldn't see any details at all. So I just cropped into these two, but I can't crop into one because there's just not enough detail in any individual bird. So that's why I just went with this. With just this composition of two birds. I think that's the best way to go. So there's the before, and there's the after. Okay. Yeah, Garrett, when I do birding and they're that far away, I don't even bother to take the picture because there's just too little there. If there was some kind of pattern here that I liked, maybe you like this pattern. If there was some pattern here that I liked, maybe I would try and work this a little more, but I don't see uh I just don't see much here. Okay, here's one from Paul. Let's do, let's see, what do we have? We have some flowers up here, maybe bluebells. We have this trail. Again, I like to think about the composition and then this mound. Yeah, I don't see much here composition wise. Maybe this trail and this corner. Let me put in a basic preset first. And compositionally, I think this corner is the way to go. Okay, almost there. It's still a little bit too much mound. Okay, I think that works a little better. Uh, okay, let's bring background in. It's a little bit too bright, like that. Let's try some contrast. Uh, leave the contrast alone on that. The micro contrast, I mean. Regular contrast. Yeah, let's use regular contrast and just the highlights a tiny bit. So I'm just trying to balance the exposure front to back a little bit. Okay. But I mean, it was too bright anyway. By some clear view. Don't really need the clear view. Okay. And I'm going to just give a couple of spots here with a control point. I want to warm that up a bit. There and there. Maybe push the highlights back. Okay. Uh, it's a little bit of a green shift over here. Okay. I mean, green tint. Let's make a new control point. See if I can just get rid of that greenish hue or tint over there. Okay, now the foreground is a bit too bright for me too, so I'm just gonna just bring the blacks in. Okay, that looks good. Maybe a tiny bit on the highlights. So what I want to do is I want to sort of magnify or intensify the area right in here where these flowers are. So let me pick a purplish area of these bluebells. Just give the chroma just a little bit more. I'll pick a couple more here and there. I have to zoom in and out to kind of get these points. And we'll take some back there. All right. And there's a little bit there. Nope. Maybe this one too. All right. Just pick that sort of violet color. Brighten them a bit. Maybe, yeah, that's better. I just do a blanket saturation and give them a little more brightness. Let me try the highlights first, and then the midtones. Okay, right about there. So, just trying to get these to separate from the greens a little bit more. And then maybe let me work on the greens now. It's gonna spot check right in here. Tighten the chroma. Okay. And if I shift them, I shift it yellow. No, let me shift it just a tiny bit more to the greenish blue. I'll do up in here too. All right, let me see where I'm at. Uh, oh, this one's a little tricky. Let me go to some global adjustments. Oh, not smart lighting. This is what I want. Contrast. No, let's just pull the blacks in and the shadows. Push the midtones a bit. And this color, I'm gonna try. I like this vibrant. And we'll cool it off in the foreground. Okay, let me go back to my control point that I was doing early on. Add a little bit more in here and here, just to make these a little bit warmer up top. Because remember, I shifted the white balance on this down in here. Let's bring a little bit more in here too. Stretch that out. Okay, I'll go back to my globals. Maybe just a global pull. A bit more push on the midtones. And just want to spot check a little bit in here. Okay. Let me go back to my flower control point. I'm going to try and brighten this again. Okay. Maybe some warmth. Yeah, just a touch. Uh, all right. I think that's it. I could spend a lot more time on this. I was thinking about maybe just softening it a bit with a just a giant linear or graduated filter they call it, and just pulling the contrast back. It's not bad. How about the sharp? Just a touch of blur. Oh, okay. Let me export this, and then we'll do a comparison. I need to pull up my other window here. Okay. All right, so I'm going to reset this and do a comparison with the output. All right, so yeah, here's this image here on the right. It's very flat. I mean, it's a raw image, so you expect it to be flat. Um, but there's really not a lot of, you know, dynamic range in this scene. Uh, in terms of color and lighting. So I try to separate those. Like I like the reds here. I could have emphasized this a little bit more and then push the greens a little bit down here now that I'm looking at it. But yeah, I think and then compositionally I don't like all of this down in here. Uh it's just it's just dirt, you know? So I thought just right in here is more interesting. We have the trail and then we have this mound of flowers here. So this is sort of the main subject taking up the bottom left. And then I try to brighten the colors of the purples all the way to the back to kind of lead your eye to the back of the trail, both with the trail itself and the colors. And then making the back area here a bit warmer and the foreground a bit cooler, I think also helps with that sort of depth, right? And dynamic range or the making the scene a little bit more dynamic. Uh, and because it's kind of a heavy crop, we lost some details. So that's why I sort of um, wanted to back off the contrast a little bit, or the micro contrast or the sharpness. Just back it off just a little bit, because we lost a lot of sharpness, especially towards the background. But okay, so that's my edit there. Um, if we just do a split view, you can see there's the before, and I think that's a much nicer image there, just mainly because of the composition and then all of that. All right, let's go to the next one. This one here is Robin, and I forget, you had a comment about this. Let me see. Sorry, I'm looking at the chat section. I'm trying to remember what you said about the tree frog. The tree frog photo is an unedited large superfine. Was it? Okay, so I do need to edit this. Got it. All right. And then I saw a few other questions in the chat. I'll get to those after this edit. Okay, so yeah, we just need mostly the right side here. So I'm going to apply a basic preset again, and then the crop will be debating about, yeah, maybe right there. Not quite. Put them in the bottom half. I think that's a good crop. And then we need to temper the highlights a bit if we can. It's going to be harder with a JPEG, but let's see how far we get. Not too bad. Let me do that and put the contrast back in. Right about there and there and there. Okay. Yeah, that helps. Okay, good. And then we need to brighten the frog a bit. And let's give him some micro contrast. And then a linear like that. And then let's work on the eye. Let's give it a little bit of a push there. Some clear view, micro contrast. I'm going to temper the highlights here some more. Okay. All right, now this area here is a little bit bright, so I'm gonna see if I can just use a linear. Let's pick this area. Sorry, a control line. I keep calling it linear, but a control line. Just do a linear darkening, and then maybe a pull on the highlights as well. And let's do the same thing down here. Pull the blacks in. Okay. And look at the composition again. I'm thinking there's maybe too much highlight there. What if I do this side? I'm not so sure. I kind of like the original composition. Right there. And a little bit more. These red there were some red leaves over here on the right that were kind of distracting me. All right, let's increase the greens a little bit. And we're going to tighten up the chroma just 5 so that we stay in the greens. And we'll select green here, but let's stretch it out a bit. We don't need to change the luminance at all, but I do want to make those pop just a bit more, maybe a little less on the yellows. Okay. Let's do some of the reds because I like the reds in here. Those will complement the greens that I just saturated. There's a little bit of red here. Okay. Might need to expand it out just a bit and feather it a little bit more. All right. I think I'll call it there. Let me export this. Actually, I don't need to export this, but because it's a JPEG, so it's not applying anything particularly special. But let's. Oops, wrong button. Reset. Compare to the output. And so there's the before, and then here's the after. Let's do it side by side. So the straight out of camera is not bad. There's already a lot of processing the camera does to the color. All I did basically is I wanted to uh, crop in a little tighter and amplify the reds and greens over here on the right. And ideally, that'll make the frog stand out a little more. And then this section here was too bright. And then obviously the highlights here were all a little bit too bright. Fortunately, I was able to bring most of it back. It'd have been a little better in RAW, but uh, I think for the most part, I think this is a pretty good edit. Okay. And then the last one here from John follows. Okay. Oh, I love this reflection down here. We don't need all this up here. So let's just do the basic preset and let's let's try a little wider, maybe a 3 by 2. What about a 16 by 9? Okay, not bad. Let's cut off a little bit of the trash on the left side, and then straighten that. Uh, so we'll come in. Okay, still a little bit off. Just give it a little more tilt. All right, I'm gonna start with the reflection. So let's go in here and just pull the blacks, a little bit of clear view, and I'm gonna punch the reds a little brighter, give them a little saturation. There we go. Uh, maybe the yellows too. Let's try that yellow. Let's see. Make it a little brighter. And I'm just affecting the reflection, not the areas up here. So let's work on the landscape. This house is a little bit too bright. So we'll pull highlights in, push the contrast a bit. Same thing up here. It's a little bit too bright. And there's a little bit of brickwork and stonework. I'm going to try and bring that out a bit. So there's some stonework in here. Just do micro contrast. Do the same thing on the brickwork over here. See. And I don't like how this tree's cut off here. I don't know if this composition is going to be it. Let me think. Try 5 by 4. Okay, I like that a little better. It's just not balanced too well. There's still too much up here. Go back to a 4 by 3. This corner, yikes. Okay, I think I'll go with that. Uh, maybe give that roof line a little bit. So we'll use the same control point. Just give the roof line a little more texture. Some in there, some in there, some over here. All right, I think I'll call it. So I'm going to export this. And then we'll compare it when it's ready. Okay, so let's reset. All right, so here's the original on the right. And then on the left, it was mainly about just straightening the composition a little bit and making the water a little bit glossier. That's about it. And then, of course, just pulling the highlights here on this yellow house and the white house and adding some texture back into the brickwork and the stonework over here. On the composition, I wanted to crop out this corner up here because it doesn't really frame the image very well. Like this line, it just yeah, it didn't work for me. I like the yellows here in the grass. I should have I missed that. These yellows, these are flowers. That'd have been nice to kind of amplify a little bit. But then, just cranking up the reds and everything in here. So I think doing a split view might be a little bit more. So it's a little flat and the composition just needs to be a little bit tighter. And then going into my edit, I think that's about the best I can do for this. Like I said, I should have done a little more separation here. I like these yellows. I don't know if I don't know if I can separate the yellows. Let me just try real quick. There's some yellows up here. Oops. A little bit of yellow up here and here. Let's see what happens if I go down to the yellows. Yeah, I like that. Okay, so that's what I would do. I'd probably work a little harder around the image to get more of the yellows. But yeah, I like that. All right. I think I saw something where somebody said they sent let me see. Oh, Shakab sent one in. I have some time. I'll do Shakab's. Okay, so this is Paul's edit. So Paul liked the composition. Apparently you liked your composition, right? You didn't like mine. Or maybe you did, but I'm just saying you liked this composition, so you kept basically the entire frame. But yeah, it's a nice edit. I think I think you did a good job. Uh Definitely different than mine. Yours is a little more realistic to what the scene was, and you did a good job sharpening and bringing all the details out, I think. But that's Paul's edit versus say, where's mine? Mine is in here somewhere. Yeah, versus my edit, right? Uh, or I went a lot darker, say versus Paul's. Okay, and then let me grab Shakab's edit real quick. Okay, it's almost there. Okay, why? There it is. Oh, a couple of horses. Cool. Uh, Still basic preset and composition. I think a square crop would look good here. So let's do a square. Get rid of that blurry foreground, that blue bucket, maybe their legs. Come in a little tighter, center their noses, bang. Actually, we can probably come in and tighter. I like the flowing mane a little bit, so let me go a little bit wider. And then, oh, it's a little out of focus. Oh, no, it's not. We're good. We're good. Just brighten the eyes a bit. Put some clear view in there, micro contrast. And then let's separate the luminance here a little bit in the mains. I'm going to tighten up the luma mask a bit and then just push the highlights and the shadows. Okay. Uh, let's pull the background. I'm going to tighten up the chroma and the luma a bit. Ooh, this horse is dark. I can't do that. All right. I just wanted to minimize the background, maybe the foreground a bit. And let's accent the mane on the darker horse here. So I'm going to start with highlights, midtones, make this a little tighter. Give it some contrast and clear view. Ooh, not too much. Okay, and then a little bit more glow around the center. Here and here. Tighten up the luma and the chroma. Some contrast. Holy crap. The whole time you guys were not seeing my screen. I'm sorry. Uh, but you'll see the before and after. Oh God, I'm so sorry you didn't see the edits. Oh, um, but here we go. I think we're good. So let me just fix the mane a little bit. This is a little bit too strong. And then the color overall, I think the white balance is good. But let's see if we can get just give it a little bit of warmth here. Portrait 2 looks good. All right, let's export this. Well, I might have to do a little unsharp mask here. Let me go into the detail panel. Yeah, these sliders don't do much. I'm just gonna work the unsharp mask myself right there. Okay. All right, let's export this. And then I'll walk you through my edits again. I'm sorry. You didn't see the screen there. So reset. All right, so there's the original, right? And that's my edit. So on the composition, I didn't think we needed this foreground. We didn't need the tail on this horse because it's missing on the left side anyway. We didn't need to see their legs or this bucket. Really, the action is right here in the center. So I darkened the background here. I darkened the foreground a bit, as you can see over here. And then I just went around with control points all around in here, brightening the eyes, brightening the mane, shifting the colors a bit to make them stand out more. So if we zoom in, uh, I think that looks pretty good. If I do this, I don't know if this makes any sense. Yeah. Yeah, I think that looks good. Um, DxO did a good job bringing all the details back. It is a little bit all out of focus here. Maybe a higher aperture to get the depth of field a little deeper, because the horses are on a different focal plane, right? So a little bit higher aperture. I'm not sure what you were at. You were at f8. Ooh, that's a tough one. Focal length though is 400. That's why. So I would have tried maybe f11, but that would crank up your ISO. I don't know. That's a tough shot to get. But all right. Let me go to the chat section and then we'll call it. So thank you everyone for sending your images in. There's a lot of great images there, and it's always fun to to do editing. I enjoy it anyway. Where's my chat window? Oh, it's right here. Okay. Yeah. So Paul, yeah, I your edit was fine. I thought it was more realistic in what you see with your eye, and I tried to get a little more creative. But yeah, it was a nice edit overall. And good job on the frog. Oh, thank you. Considering it's a JPEG, yeah. And let's see. Looks like a picture from a miniature village. Oh yeah, yeah, the one that John sent in. Yep. And Robin says, "Thank you for your edits. They were very nice. The simple editing software I use only allows global adjustments, so I did a tighter square crop to get rid of the brightness on the right side of the frog." Yes. So yeah, I get it, right? Because when you try to pull highlights globally, it kind of makes the whole image look weird. Um, Trying to think, there's some free editors out there. If it's an Olympus camera, you can use Workspace, but that doesn't have global. That doesn't have local adjustments either. A lot of people like Darktable, um, and a lot of people use GIMP as well. GIMP is a little bit of a learning curve on that one though. And then missed the edit of my shot. We only see. Oh, sorry, William. Yeah, hopefully I got that and can't see your edit. Yeah, sorry, John. And I'm just checking. Loving DxO. See anywhere to put a frame on it? There is not. There's no framing, but I'm thinking. Uh, I think I figured out a way to do it. It was a long time ago. Let me just I'm just gonna just look real quick. I forget how I did it. Uh, so if I wanted to put a basic frame around this, I'm trying to think, how did I do it before? I did it in a roundabout way. It was, let me see. It might have been, okay, this is how I did it. Uh, I did it using the watermarking. So what I did was, is I created squares. Yeah, I created some squares and frames in another software, or I downloaded some squares and frames from, one of the free clip art sites, and then I applied it as a watermark to the image. And then I was able to scale it using the tools down here so that it would frame the image. So you're going to have to typically work within the standard frame sizes, right? 16 by 9, 4 by 3, 5 by 4, etc. Generally speaking, you're not going to have any, you can't do any weird crops, but that's how I did it. I haven't done it in years since like Photolab 5. That's when I figured it out. But we're on Photolab 8 now, so it's been years. But that's how I did it is I got a frame, or I made a frame, or I downloaded free clip art frames from somewhere and applied it as a watermark, and then adjusted the scale using the instant watermark tool, if that makes sense. Okay. Can you frame it if you have film pack? I don't think so. Let me look. Uh, Actually, film pack does have some framing, doesn't it? Let me look. Um, it being the special effects. Yeah. So with film pack, you get these extra things under the FX tabs, special effects tabs. And there's one here for framing, so I can add a frame with the film pack. And they have various frames in here, right? So if I want sort of a grungy frame, a rebate type, film rebate frames like that. They have more standard frames here. I can adjust the size like so. What else do they have in here? It's not a huge selection, but just enough to kind of get you around. So if you have film pack, it's very easy. Okay. Let's see. Any other questions? Oops, where's my yeah, frame is an option if you have film pack loaded. Yeah, so yeah, if you have film pack, you can frame easily. If you don't have film pack, then you can do it using watermarking tool, but you have to find frames and graphics that'll work. Uh Now William says, did I not show the edit of your shot? I thought, let me just show it to you right now. Let me see. I thought it was only chicaves that I messed up on, but I thought for sure I showed you this edit, William. So if we compare it, that's the edit that I did. Um, so that's your original here on the left, and that's my edit there on the right. So I think there's the before and after. I thought for sure you guys all saw that. Anyhow, um, I don't know why I'm messing up so bad today. And by the way, is there any chance you can make a future video about Olympus highlight shadow spot metering? I still can't fully figure out how to use them. Okay. I have an older video that does kind of cover that, but uh and it depends a little on which camera you have. But for the most part, the focus point will follow the spot meter, right? So if you put your focus point on a bright area, it'll meter for wherever your focus point is. If you have it on spot high, sometimes I get this mixed up. But basically what it tries to do is bring the exposure within one stop before the highlights clip, or within one stop before the shadows clip. So that's all it is. So if you point to the highest point, and I think it's spot high, I might have it reversed, but let's say you put your focus point on the brightest part of the image and you're using the spot high or low, it's going to bring the highlights within one stop of clipping. And the shadows, if you point your focus point into a shadow area, it's going to darken the image all the way down until it's within one stop of clipping completely to black. If it's on a bright area, it's gonna bring the exposure, adjust the exposure so it's within one stop before clipping the highlights. So that's the difference between spot high and spot low. If your if your camera doesn't use the if you cannot use the focus point to uh, place the spot meter, and your spot meter is only in the center of the camera, like on the EM10 Mark II, it doesn't have focus point spot metering. It has center spot metering only. Then you have to point it to the brightest part of the darkest part, then do a AEL, block the exposure at that point, and then you can recompose and take the picture. So that's the gist of it. But I'll have to make a new video on that. And Garrett says, just came in my Lumix S5D. It's on sale here for 1,000. Wow. S5D. I'm not familiar with that. I know the S5. Well, what do you mean by S5D? With the 18 to 40. Wow. Man, I would buy it for 1,000 if I got the lens and the camera together. That's amazing. But okay, I think we'll call it there. So everyone, thank you so much for joining me today. Thanks for sending your images. Um, if you like these videos, hit the like, buy me a coffee, become a member. I really appreciate the new memberships that join me here. And be sure you can use the link down below anytime to submit your images for next week's stream. So you don't have to wait until I post. Um, so, but if you want to wait until I actually post the stream, that's fine too. So you guys have a great weekend, and I'll be back on Sunday most likely. Thanks again for coming in today.